So, hey, warm welcome to everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me for the session today. Um, I'm really delighted to be able to walk you through some of the things that we do at ControlUp. And as was said before, I am a CTP. I'm also an MVP for remote desktop services, or enterprise mobility as it's called by now. And so I'm in this industry for a long time, and I will also be a speaker at SUGTech. So I really look forward to come over to Norway in April. So this is going to be cool. Hey, my plan is I'm going to walk you through some PowerPoint slides. Don't worry, it's not going to be any marketing bullshit. It's pure technical how things work. And you see, I've also already set up my demo environment. I notified my colleagues who are actively working in parallel, also preparing or actually doing demos side by side, that they should not interfere too much, so that I do not lose too much of the performance on in our demo environment. Let me just switch to PowerPoint briefly and give you an overview of what ControlUp really does. I mean, you see here next level EUC management and automation. That is basically what we do, more in depth in just a minute or so. ControlUp is a company that's headquartered in San Jose in California. Research and development is in Israel, close to Tel Aviv. The entire team was there last week. We had our global kickoff, so that was fun. The entire team was in Jerusalem and in Tel Aviv for the week. While this thing was happening in Jerusalem, all the leaders, the global leaders, met there while we were there. This was not fun because all the roads were blocked. So when we wanted to leave Jerusalem, it took us more than 3 hours to get out of the city because all the streets and all the roads were blocked because, hey, the world leaders were having dinner. And so we were not allowed to interfere, and the police blocked everything. We are more than 150 people now in ControlUp, all around the world, and more than 1,500 customers. And you see in the partner list that it's the who is who in the EUC market, like Citrix, VMware, Microsoft, Nutanix, and for the GPU side, it's NVIDIA. And what we basically do is we hook into the EUC environments both on-prem and in the cloud. We do what used to be called monitoring. I personally try to stay away from the term monitoring because in particular in the conservative markets, like in the German-speaking market, the word monitoring has a bad flavor. And so we rather stay with the other terms like analytics and remediation. And so what we really do is we look into an EUC system in real time. And this is how ControlUp was born. It comes from a consulting company called SmartX in Israel. And the consultants there, they also wanted to see more what's going on in the Citrix environments. And they were Citrix admins and Citrix consultants. And they just wanted to see what's going on in the different machines. And they wanted to see that in real time across the different machines in the farms. And so this is how it all started. And they built a console that was hosted in the cloud. Today, we have both cloud and on-prem. And as soon as you have all the data that you're collecting for the real-time view, you also can say, hey, what can we do with this data? Number one is you can trigger actions based on the data that you have. Number one is that you right-click one of the elements that you're collecting and you do something with it. This is the script-based action, as we call it. Or you can do automation. You set triggers. So if you hit a certain threshold, then we do something. Or you can do troubleshooting, like drilling down into certain elements in real time. But you can also store that data in a database and get a historical view of the user experience and the system health. So this is the other thing that we can do with the data we're collecting. And as I said, it was born in the cloud. The cloud infrastructure looks like that. On the lower side, you have the customer environment. In the customer environment, you can have all the different elements that you need to build an EUC environment, RDS and CenUp and CenDesktop and Horizon View on top of the different hypervisors. And you can also see that there are it goes beyond that, because over time, ControlUp added physical servers and NetScalers and looks into the cloud infrastructure as well, and uses all that to feed the data into what we call the ControlUp console. This is the real-time console. And very important to know is that some of the information is collected by putting an agent into the components, like the VDI components on a CenUp server or on CenDesktop host. We put an agent in there that collects the data and reports it up to the console. Or we use the API, for example, for NetScaler. We cannot put an agent in NetScaler. So we're using the NetScaler API to get all the necessary information. And the same is true for the brokers. We do not put an agent into the broker. Like we do not place necessarily an agent in the delivery controller. We can use the delivery controller API to get the necessary information. Because it's a dynamic environment as soon as you have dynamic deployment mechanisms like PVS or MCS. And this is why we need to make sure that we hook into the brokers and well, see what's happening in there. And our agents, they're stateless. This means that the console can connect to any agent. So if the console gets aware of a new endpoint that includes an agent, then the console can connect to that agent and collect the data. This is very important for you to know if you build Citrix environments based on provisioning server. So if you roll out the machines using provisioning services and they include the ControlUp agent, then the delivery controller notifies the console that they are the new machines. And so we can use this data, this information, and connect to the new member of the farm, and then retrieve the data. So this is how all this works. And then you see the other side, on the right side, you see the ControlUp monitor. This is like a console without a GUI that behaves like an administrator collecting the data all the time, but feeds it into a database. And from that database, we can do all kinds of analytics. This is how the the architecture looks like. It's not rocket science. It's nothing that is different than other things that you've seen out there. And using this same architecture, we build it on-prem. So you have everything in your environment. And instead of feeding stuff into the ControlUp server that lives in the cloud, you run this ControlUp server plus a small SQL Server database on premises. We need the SQL database to keep track of the different elements that built the EUC environment. We're using Splunk to collect the large data sets that come from the ControlUp monitor to do the historical analytics. So we have the full feature set also on-prem, and the customer decides if they rather want to use the cloud infrastructure or if they want to use the on-premises infrastructure. So they can decide upfront what they want to do. And going from there, and this is the stuff that I will demo in a minute or so, You see here the real-time console. This is what most administrators have on their screen. And on the left side, you see the list of all the supported products out there. On top, all the Citrix stuff. Brand new is the native integration of VMware Horizon, so we can look at an EUC environment independently of the underlying EUC product. The same is true for RDS and WVD. We're working on a deeper integration of WVD because we don't have the full information from the broker, the WVD broker service, but this is what our engineering team is working on now. You see the different hypervisors that we can collect all the information on Linux and IGEL and physical clients, and some vSAN and Nutanix and storage stuff and the NVIDIA stuff. So this is what the real-time console does. Now, if we manage and optimize things, we go into the real-time console and we can click on the individual objects that are in the real-time console. And this is what I'm going to show you in the demo in just a bit. And we can take a look across different machines and compare the settings of the different machines, which is extremely powerful, as you will see in a bit. What makes the platform extremely powerful is that we allow to add script-based actions. And we have community actions, which means we have community members like CTPs, MVPs, vExperts, and they help us to create those scripts. And these scripts can run with input from the data that we're collecting in the real-time console. And this is something that makes the environment, the ControlUp environment, extremely extensible. So we can respond to requirements our customers have out there very rapidly. So this allowed us, Esther Bartels, she is a CTP as well, and she created scripts that are analyzing the NetScalers if they were patched or not long before Citrix published the final patch. So we were able to tell our customers if they have the vulnerability or not. And this is the power of the community, that we can use in this case, Esther Bartels' knowledge of NetScaler to find out about that. And we can then move those community actions to the organizational actions, and then they're mainstream in a production environment. And we can use those scripts to trigger activities when certain performance counters go beyond a certain threshold. This is the trick that we're using. And again, this helps us to automate administrative repeated tasks very easily. And then we can look at the historical data. This is the front end that we're using for that. It's a little bit eye candy so that you can drill down into the different elements. Here are more resources. I'm going to send you over the PowerPoint slide deck so that you can take a look at it, because there are a couple of more slides in there that walk you through the different pieces of the architecture. But now let's go into the real life demo. As I said before, this is well, my colleagues are working in this environment right now. You see here is another CTP, Sam Legrand from France. So he is working actively. Now he's idle since 20 minutes. Here is Guy Leach. He is one of the scripters. He doesn't work for ControlUp. He is member of this scripter team. And so currently he is working in the environment and create new script-based actions. So this is what we can see in our demo environment. Yevgeny, he is head of the EMEA team, and many of you may have seen Yevgeny before because he is responsible for the Nordics. And so he is currently working in the environment. And Lindell Harry from the UK, he's preparing a demo. He's going to start the demo in 15 minutes. So I better shift gears so that I'm done with my demos before Lindell starts doing his things. Now, what can you do with a view like this? You see, I highlighted everything that is Citrix related at this moment. You see the native integration into the Horizon environment. So the EUC thing, this is what I said, looks into the broker. So I can read all the broker information and see what are the delivery groups that we have in there. And you see we have a production environment. We also have another environment that we're using for testing. And so you can see how we read the data, the Citrix related data from the brokers. And then this part of the tree is populated automatically depending on what kind of elements are in there. Let's go to the Synapse 6.5 environment, for example. So you see the individual machines. One of them is not available at this time. So yes, it's registered, but at this time we cannot reach it. So this is very easy to see which machines are turned off at a given time. This machine is still a part of the farm, but it is not active right now while the others are. And I can always check out on which machine I'm working. So I'm logged in on 2 different machines. One is here. This is my active session. So I'm actively working in a Citrix session, as you can see here. So I connected through the NetScaler and I'm working in this session where, well, on the desktop is my ControlUp console. But I'm also logged into a second machine, which is something that I'm going to show you later. Now, what can I do with that kind of information that I have here? So this is the information that I have in terms of the user sessions. I can also break it down to the individual machines. I can change the focus and say, hey, I only want to look at these machines here. And then I have the selection of these 5 machines that are active right now. Now, if I want to see what the difference is between these machines, because, you know, sometimes users call you on the support, they call support and they say, wow, yesterday things went much better than today. Obviously something is different on the machine where I'm connected now. So I can just select 4 of these machines and then right click. And this is when we start managing the environment and going into the details. Now I have selected those 4 and I want to see the services that are running on those 4. And you see the power of the other things that I can do. I can go into the registry. I can reboot the machines. I can remote into those machines. I can start script actions. And we will take a look at the script actions in a bit. We can control the agent that is collecting the data. We can restart it, for example. We can collect some diagnostics. But right now, I want to take a look into the services and in particular, what's going on with the Citrix services. And as you can see here, I can take a look at all the services that are running on this machine. And well, the icon shows me some interesting information. For example, here this icon shows me that everything I said is identical on the 4 machines. So this particular service is up and running on all the machines. But here, this little icon shows me there are properties that are different between those machines. Now, when I click here, I can take a look at the properties and I see, oh, on number 1, the service is running, while on number 2, 3, and 4, it stopped. And I can go through the other ones as well. Hey, look at that. This is like a pattern. The end user experience monitoring is only started on number 1, but it stopped on the others as well. PVS. Oh, it's not even available on number 1. So PVS device service doesn't run there while it's running on 2, 3, and 4. So that makes it extremely easy for you to find out what's the difference between machines in a farm. Because sometimes, even if you deploy the farms by PVS, well, things may happen that one of the services just fails and doesn't start. And this is the easiest way to find out what the difference is. you can also drill into the registry in pretty much the same way. So if I do this, start this drill down, and it's loading, and then you see again, same mechanism. I can just click on any of those elements in the registry and I see, oh, this tree in the registry, this key only exists on number 1, but not on 2, 3, and 4. And I would be able to say, okay, I want to distribute it to all the other machines as well, which is again very powerful. So if I find out that I have something on one machine, or I have it on 3 of 4 machines, I want to make sure it also exists on machine number 4, I would just click distribute and it would populate the registry with exactly those keys. So it is very powerful as a mechanism to drill down into the environment. So you see, we call this controllers. So the mechanism allows us to select several machines and then look at the services, the registry, the file system, and the programs and updates that I installed. That is another thing that allows me to check out what the installation status is on those machines. Now let's go back to the entire environment and go back to the sessions. Because one of the other things that we typically want to find out is, hey, why are logons taking so long, for example? We have a user here, it's a demo user, and this user has an extreme long logon time. Now, as I told you before, we are able to run scripts. Let me go and show you what the scripts installed in this environment are. So you see all these community scripts, and they are filtered by date, which ones were installed last. And you see Guy Leach, he is working on, well, show zombie processes, whatever that means. So he is currently working on that. And you see that Trenton Tai, he is also a CTP. He is working on IGEL integration massively. And then we see all the Horizon things if we scroll down. And then we have many things that are, well, very good for Citrix and Ivanti and all the other elements that you can have in the environment. Let's take a look at the popularity. How many were installed in environments most? And you see that GPO extensions and the GPO things and analytics are some of the most important ones. You can create your own scripts. So here are my draft scripts. So if you want to create your own scripts, that can be done easily. But we have a huge script repository that comes with the product. And if you scroll down here, you can see how many of these scripts are already there. And you can always take a look at the details of these scripts. I will demonstrate one script in a little bit. And let me see where it is. It should be automate the clear temp. I want to show that because it's so simple that it's very easy to understand. I can say edit the script. I take a look at the script, and it's a very simple PowerShell script that deletes a folder or files in a folder if the folder is running out of capacity. This is the idea of this script. And I'm going to show that in a bit, but it gives you an idea how we create those scripts and how we put them into the system. Now, as soon as I go into my real life in the real-time environment, you see these donuts over there. When I click this donut, then our virtual expert called Oliver shows up. This is Oliver here. And Oliver gives us a recommendation what to do. Now I click on this script that analyzes what is the root cause for the long logon duration. And what this script does is it goes into AD, finds out what user it is, finds out on which machine the user is logged on, and then goes to this machine and analyzes all information, all log information, all performance counters, everything that's on this machine using PowerShell to figure out why for this particular user it took so long to log on this particular machine. Now, since this is not a simple PowerShell script, it is several hundred lines of code, but it shows you very clearly what are the different phases of the logon, and it tells us, oh, the group policy took 94 seconds. The typical thing that we would expect is it's user profile. No, user profile took only 0.1 second, 100 milliseconds to run through. So it's not the user profile, the typical suspect. You see here there are group policy scripts that take 10 seconds, but the majority of time is lost here with a group policy setting. Down here, we get a little bit more information about what's going on with the certificates, but we do not lose much time here. Very good. So we have learned that there must be something wrong for this user with the group policy. Let's close that and then give you an impression when we scroll over there what kind of information is available to us in this real-time view. The real-time view is refreshed every 3 seconds. So we get that kind of data in real time every 3 seconds. Now, if we scroll here, we end up at a column that says group policy load time. Oh, yes, we are in our demo user, and we find again the 94 seconds. So we could have avoided the first analytics script and used this one right away. Again, you see the donut. If I right click it, I get again all the detailed stuff that I can do. And here are the recommended actions. But if I click it left, then again, my virtual expert suggests, hey, analyze the GPO extensions, one of the most popular scripts that you have seen only a couple of minutes ago. Now, if I do that analytics, it goes a little faster, and it will give me the indication what goes wrong in the group policy. And again, it's a time here, and we see here we lose 72 seconds because of a drive mapping policy. Well, I can tell you the little secret. This CU demo user does not have the permission to map a share. So this is why the group policy has to wait for the timeout. And the timeout takes more than 70 seconds. And this is why we cannot see any other indication in here. Everything is green. So it's not something that we can see on a first glance. It's only the logon duration that makes the overall user experience score bad. And it is here the group policy. Well, more logon duration indicators here, but that's the only thing that's red for this particular user. Now you see how easy it was for us to find out, to do the drill down and find out what's wrong for this particular user. It's just a matter of going into these little things. But now we can do more with that. We can say, hey, what if we have a RDP in ICA session? So a nested connection, because I have a machine running here. It's a server 2019 session that I have running here, and I'm doing other things in here. And I showed you this automation script that cleans the temporary or a folder, and we're using this script-based action from a trigger. Now, what I can do is I can run a PowerShell script that creates a file in there so that it goes across the threshold. So here the file is being created. It's still 0, Now it's large, it's a large file. Now the trigger kicks in, and it should take less than 10 seconds for the trigger to clean it up, which has happened now. This is amazing because what you can do is if you have repeating management tasks, you can script them. And you have seen the very simple script that did the job. And let's check it out, what I have done to make it happen. I assigned a trigger, and this trigger does nothing else but automate this cleanup. So this is this clean temp folder, and if I check it out, what it does, it is a trigger, and it runs the script. It does it. Minimum duration must be 3 seconds. So this is why we avoid to run the script if something only shows up for a split second. So we wait for 3 seconds if the file stays. If it does, then we're going to run the script, and we only apply it to this particular server where I'm logged on, not to the entire infrastructure. I can assign it to any of the elements that I have in here. And when I go there, I'll run exactly that script that I showed you earlier that only has these 2 lines. This is the magic behind the scenes, what's going on. But we can do so many more things. For example, we can say, hey, if we are disconnecting from a session, then we want all processes to not consume that many resources anymore. So if I scroll down here, I'm active in my Citrix session, but I'm also active in the session that I just showed you, the RDP session on the server 2019. Now, if I do a double click here, I drill down into my session and I see all the different processes running here, some of them in high priority, because I have one thing running in here that consumes a lot of resources. And this is another trigger that we can set as soon as we start rotating the model here. Then we bring this process into above normal so that we get more compute power for this particular process. And this is why you were seeing above normal. But now I want to just disconnect from this session, and I want to make sure that this session does not consume too many resources. So I disconnect, and after again like 5, 6, 7 seconds, the trigger finds out, oh, the session is not active anymore. It's disconnected, and it brings the priority down of all the processes to below normal. Now, let's cross our fingers that this demo works. If the demo gourds are with me, yes, they are. So you see, everything is below normal now. Wonderful. So this means that I have freed up a lot of space on that machine while the user is disconnected for the other users. This is friendly behavior in a shared resource. And what I can do, this is still visible. What I can do, I can reconnect to this machine. Oh, good. I'm back. Now let's go back to the console. And after a while, all these processes should be back to the priority that they had before, because we can bring it back. You see, now it's above normal, high, normal, all of that, all the things that we wanted to configure properly when the user is logged on again. So like I said, very powerful infrastructure to automate things, to trigger on certain thresholds, and it's completely configurable for you. And we can do exactly the same on the NetScaler side. So there it's not the sessions, it's more the machines that we want to see. Wow. Huh? What's going on? Obviously, the NetScalers are not visible right now. I know that our IT team is working like crazy on the NetScalers right now. And because they want to establish multi-factor authentication. So maybe they removed them only an hour ago from the from collecting the necessary information, because right now, what we typically do is we connect the NetScalers using the APIs, and they may have disallowed that because they are modifying that. So sorry, I cannot show this part of the demo. Typically, we are able to look into the NetScalers in exactly the same way as we do look into the other nodes, just because we are using the REST API that's provided by Citrix. Okay, now to show you the power that we have with the data that we're collecting, I want to switch over to the console that we have to read out the database. This is called Insight. After some inactivity, I'm logged off, so I reconnect to the Insight console, and it gives you a nice overview over the last 24 hours, what happened, and sometimes even longer, like, okay, a new user logged in after he was not active for 56 days. You see, it's a bot. We have these automated test runs that we have in our environment. You also see the good old CU demo user that has an average of 87 seconds logon time. We have Guy Leach here. So you see the users, you see the different computers, the highlights, you see the hosts, and this gives you an indication of what's going on in this environment. So we have many hosts, we have many applications running in here. We can always do a drill down by clicking on any of those, but this is something that I will do from a different place, because we also can take a look at like how many sessions do we have in the environment right now, but even more, do an entire environment assessment. So what are the different nodes that we have in here? And you can see this is not a small environment that we're using as our demo environment. This is why it's sometimes unpredictable what's going on. We have 16 different hosts, like 16 different physical machines with close to 700 VMs. And right now it's 90 users that are working in this environment. So this allows us to really go into all these little details and take a look at the infrastructure. Like I said, we can do a click on the different elements, and here I see that the cmd.exe shows in red. So what's going on with cmd.exe? What happened over the last time? So it's as easy as clicking on it, and now it extracts all that data, and we find out, wow, look at that. On January 29th, obviously there were many instances of the CMD a console that was started. Obviously, my colleagues, they did some stress testing, and so you see these massive spikes, but it stopped yesterday. So we're in a good shape again. So we know that we are back to pretty much normal, what's going on. And this is how powerful this environment is. And if you go down here, let's see what we see in terms of NetScalers. Oh, okay, so we have the historic data of our NetScalers, like the packets that went out, the HDX sessions that we hosted. So here, in this case, we go back the last 24 hours. We can also say, okay, show me the last 4 hours, what happened. And you see how we started logging in. So I think I was among the first who started prepping the demo environment, and then the rest started logging in at 10 and making my demo environment or my demo a little slower than it was like an hour and a half ago, because now all the other guys are also working. And again, we can drill down into all the different elements of our NetScalers and, well, the individual NetScalers, how many users and sessions they're hosting, what the CPU load is, what the memory and all of that is. This is very powerful. Like I said, we can do the same thing for the applications. In this case, we can find out what are the most used applications, the most unique users. I mean, the window manager, for obvious reason, is very hot in this list. But I think you get an idea of the way that we are looking at historic data. Now, what I like one of the features I like most is the sizing recommendation, and I want to have a sizing recommendation for our virtual desktops. So I focus on the virtual desktop machines, and now it shows me the CPU sizing, RAM sizing, and it gives me a recommendation how to right size the individual machine. So it shows me the Synapse 6.5 server here and recommends that I can remove 11 gigabyte of RAM, because typically I'm only using 5 gigabyte of RAM. And well, I can also look at the statistics, and the statistics on that particular machine shows me that, hey, the RAM usage in fact stays at a very, very low level. It really stays at these 5 gigabyte. Obviously, hardly anybody works on this machine number 20, and so the recommendation is reduce the amount of memory. But sometimes I also have the recommendation add a gigabyte, because here's another machine that has not enough memory. So it recommends please add the memory. So this is because it's all virtual machines. It's fairly simple to adjust using the management system for your hypervisor to assign more memory to those particular machines, or remove memory from those particular machines, to balancing it out so that everything works in the right way. So I hope this gives you an idea about the power of what we can do with ControlUp, because most people look at ControlUp as a pure monitoring, real-time monitoring system, but the monitoring is only the starting point, because whenever you click on any of those elements here, there is something that you are recommended that you can do, or you can go even further by doing a right click, and you have all these capabilities depending on what sort of type of elements you collected. Now, I hope that I will see the machines. So now I can do it on a machine-wide level. And let's go back to sessions and do something very cool. And because we still have this session running in the background, now let's go back to the console and try to find this particular user. Now let me scroll down and find me. Here I am. I right click this user, and it allows me to get a session screenshot. I can configure it that I can do that without notifying the user, or with notification or even approval. I'm going to show you how to change these settings, that I cannot do it without notifying the user. But in this case, I'm allowed to do it without notifying the user. So if the user says something is not working correctly, please can you take a look at my machine? So it's as simple as that to create a screenshot, or even create a screenshot on a regular basis, like every 10 seconds, so that you can see what's going on the end user screen. But now the question in Europe is also, oh, how can I turn that off? Because I don't want my admins to be able to mirror a user session without notifying the user. This is where the security policy comes in very handy, and you see it's extremely granular. We can sort of configure all the different elements of the settings by user groups easily, because we have a big number of groups, and it's not only the standard groups. As you can see, there are also custom groups, and we can modify the settings in there by opening all these things, like what can I do on file system level, what can I do on group policy level, and and what can I do on installed software, power management. So it is extremely granular what you can do within this environment. So this allows you to set those things nicely for the different groups that you have in a customer environment. So if you have admins that are doing third level support, those may need very different privileges compared to those people that do first line support. The first line supporters may not be allowed to modify things. I don't have the privileges. I'm not the administrator, the godlike administrator who can change these things. So this is why I cannot modify those settings here. I can only show you that this is the way how we can go into that and either inherit the settings that we have from here, or we are able to modify it that moment when I have the necessary privileges. Good. Now I would say is the time to probably ask questions. If you have questions, please feel free.